What to do between the time they have the other house.
Got heels on.
Hell for a while, then it's gonna be
Yeah.
a couple of months for the RV, so.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everyone for being here and those that are watching. I have a very short mayor's report. I wanted to say that I participated in the day of prayer this last week, which was very enjoyable and moving. It meant a lot to me this year more because of my experience and the way the city prayed for me to get healthy. So it was quite a moving experience for me. And also on Friday, the tourism department and myself and several other people were at the train station to welcome people. It was Transportation Week. I don't know, I don't have that all right probably, but anyway, we had a good turnout and it was well received, I believe. The other thing is, just a reminder, MyFest is coming up. Note that there's changes this year, that normally the parades are on Sunday. This year they changed it to Saturday. So I just want everybody to be advised because traffic's going to be a real pain. At 2 o'clock, that's when the parade is. Like I say, normally they do it on Sunday. They have changed it, so that ought to be interesting. Okay, in the city of Herman, you know, we're like any other city and many businesses. We need people. We are down 3 police officers. We need a dispatcher, administration assistant, and a part-time tourism service person. So if you know anybody that could possibly fill one of them positions, send them our way. Thank you. City Administrator?
Yes, so I have an update on the CTAL well. We actually have a start date tomorrow. We're starting tomorrow, and it should be completed by the end of the month.
Is that pump?
Yes.
The pump, okay.
That's right. You've probably seen the work on Washington Street that's been started. They were doing the saw cutting last week, and then they'll be demoing hopefully this week. And then of course the concrete people will be here throughout the month of May. So they are working 7 to 3:30. They said they work around the bus traffic, and they will always keep one lane open. And that is one of the reasons why the MyFest parade is being rerouted down through, they're going to start at the firehouse in the Lower City Park and go past, Mozart, they're on by the Lions Field and up to 6th Street that way. So the street department did some patching on Hollyhock Alley. They did a lot of patching actually. That's a very high traffic alley, and we get a fair amount of complaints about it, but a lot of traffic, and then the trash trucks come by and pretty much tear it up again. So, but the street department did freshly patch some of the really bad places there. The Parks Department is busy getting ready for the pool to open. Opening day is May 28th, and Corey's got all the personnel lined up. There's a couple last lifeguards on your agenda tonight to hire. And in the gas department, we've been notified by our consultant, Ron Reagan, that to expect gas prices to continue to go up for a little while. He is calling a special meeting later this month for the Gas Commission, a little bit to educate us on, he was going to send some information, but I didn't get it in time to share with you tonight, but he wants to educate us a little bit on some of the details on how that affects, how the economy is affecting gas prices, and some other things. So I will update you on that after the meeting. I did get notice from the county. We had applied for 2 grants for their level of ARPA funding. So I got a note, so the caboose, for the statue, the conductor statue. Gary Lehman had wanted to apply for funds for that, and I reviewed it before he sent it in. And then for the 200th block of East 4th Street, since ARPA funds are allowable for infrastructure, we applied for the max of the $50,000 to help us on that project. We did not get those. MRPC is managing that for the county, and it says the Gascony County Commission met to review round 1 of the American Rescue Plan Act proposals, and the county received over $1.2 million in requests, and unfortunately their proposal was not awarded funds in this round. They may change some of the parameters and reopen it up at a later date. We of course are applying regardless of whether or not we get any county funds. We're applying for the federal infrastructure funds for as much as we can. So I think that is all I had. We need to schedule a budget workshop. So I guess the week of the 17th, the week of the 16th is out. I just got word that for myself, I might be out with a family member the following week, a couple days, for a medical thing, but I think that's the week we kind of have to shoot for. Unless we do something together really fast this week, like Thursday or Friday. Otherwise, the week of the 16th is out because a couple of you are going to be gone. So then we're looking at the week of the 23rd.
I'm gone that entire week.
You're okay. How about I would have to scramble, but
Could we do this Friday
this
during the day?
I can't do during the day. I can do in the evening.
This week, Thursday or Friday?
Thursday's out.
The evening?
But all day.
All day. Okay. Friday. Who wants to come to a budget meeting on a Friday evening?
Friday the 13th.
That's what I was thinking, it's Friday the 13th, I don't think I should. I could do 11. Could do Wednesday.
This tomorrow? This
Yeah.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Band concert.
Oh, never mind. I could do the 24th. But you're gonna be gone.
You're gonna be on that whole week. Okay.
Okay, who can do Friday? If I have to, I'll do
I
Friday.
can do Friday. In process elimination, I think Friday the 13th is it.
Friday evening?
Yep.
Friday evening. Okay.
What time are you doing that?
What time do you want to do it? Earlier?
6.
Like 6?
5:30?
I'd
5?
say 5:30 to 6, somewhere there.
Earlier the better.
Yeah, for me too.
4?
No, I can't do that.
Not 4.
5?
5 or 5:30.
Got an auction going?
Yeah.
Let's do 5:30.
Okay.
5:30 this Friday. Be there for all the fun. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I goofed, we were supposed to start with a public hearing.
Right.
I just went right over that. I apologize. So,
She's on YouTube, yes.
oh,
All right, we can go ahead and call this hearing to order at 7:10 on Monday, May 9th. And this is a hearing to consider a request for a conditional use permit for Nicholas and Brittany Renfro to expand their business to have liquor sales for outdoor consumption in the private walkway located between 220 and 222 East First Street in the C1 Commercial District for more than 12 operating days. Excuse me, 12 operating days per year. And there is a transcript being prepared of this hearing. We have our court reporter tuning in, and so she's taking that down. The applicant, if they're here, will have an opportunity to present their case and explain why they think they need this permit. Of course, the mayor and the board can ask questions. The mayor should go ahead and ask those in the public if they have any comments or questions, either in favor of or against. After that, the board may deliberate and vote. a majority vote of the board is needed in order to rule or to either grant or deny this permit. We have certain documents here to be proposed as exhibits. Exhibit 1 would be the conditional use permit application, and Exhibit 2 would be the affidavit of publication from the Herman Advertiser Courier newspaper. Exhibit 3 would be the notice of public hearing that is printed in the newspaper. Exhibit 4 would be the meeting minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission from April 28, 2022, where you can note that a motion was made, seconded, and unanimously passed to approve this conditional use permit. And then the next exhibit would be the entire municipal code of the city of Herman, Missouri. Mayor Cox, do you agree to accept these exhibits into the record?
Yes, sir.
Are the applicants here?
Yeah.
Hey Dad, thanks for having us today. So basically what we're looking to do is just expand our patio a little bit in between 220 and 222, which is on our prior property. We're already approved for liquor sales on the city sidewalk, and it'll basically just connect to that. All of it will be fenced in, and we're looking at about 36 seats. We won't be selling any alcohol out there, but our guests, will be allowed to enjoy it.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Corey, do you know, has Nick, who told Nick what the building inspector said? Nick, so, if you want to come around here and look at my.
Sure, of course. I'll give you a copy of
So
this.
he was suggesting that nothing be here, and
that's
he says that, occupancy of 26. Yeah, okay. That was the building, you all have that in your packets. That was the building inspector's recommendation that it be a maximum occupancy of 26.
Is that based on, I guess, square footage? Is that how we
He has a
calculate?
formula about square footage.
About 15 square feet to a person.
Okay, sounds good. I'm fine with that. We can make that work.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? No. I have a motion to,
Does anyone in the public have any questions, comments?
thank you. Now, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the conditional use permit for Brittany and Nicholas Renfro.
Motion's been made, second.
Second.
And this would be a permit with the conditions that Ms. Haney just mentioned regarding the maximum number of people and the other comments of the building inspector, correct?
Okay. First and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried, sir.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Good luck. Okay, now we'll get back on the right track here. Public comments. Mark Pointek, is that how you pronounce it?
Piantek, close. Close enough. Good evening. My name is Mark Piantek, and I'm the attorney for JSL Holdings. Those are the folks that have been up here a number of times talking about the proposed food truck vendor license. I know I was here once before and addressed the board on that issue. I want to thank the mayor and the board for their time and their consideration to our concerns. And Dave and I have spent a fair amount of time going back and forth over some of the language in the ordinance, and I appreciate you authorizing him to work with us on that. Let me just say, in general, we still don't think that the food truck vendor ordinance is necessary, but if you're committed to adopting something, we still have some issues with the draft that's before you tonight for consideration. For example, there's a section in here, 670.020, that says a food truck vendor who desires to operate a food truck on a city street, parking lot, or other city property during a festival or special event shall comply with the festival activities ordinance. The problem we have with that is that it uses the language, a city street, parking lot, or other city property, which indicates to me that this is applicable to only city streets, parking lots, city streets, city parking lots, or other city property. Now, I understand that that's maybe not what is intended, but that's what it says. So if you look at that language wouldn't apply to my folks or anybody that's operating a food truck on private property. But then you go to the food or the festival ordinance, and it says it applies to public and private property. So there's a bit of a conflict there between this ordinance and what your festival ordinance says. So that's one concern that we have. Another issue I have with this is in section 670.070, it says a permit can be revoked or subject to adverse permit action for any city code violation. Literally, that means if a food truck vendor is driving down the street and they run a stop sign or they make an illegal turn or something, you can come back and revoke their permit. Even though the violation has absolutely nothing to do with the operation of the food truck, it's a violation of city code to roll through a stop sign or make an illegal turn, and that would subject the food truck vendor to having their license revoked. It seems to me that the better language would be that it could be revoked for a violation of this ordinance, not any violation of city code. Again, if somebody's driving 40 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone, that's a city code violation, and potentially they're going to lose their food truck vendor permit. So we have some concerns with that. I also have some concerns with subjecting somebody who owns a food truck and has a vendor's license and maybe at the same location week in and week out on private property, and then when it comes to a festival, they have to apply for a special vendor permit, and then it's fairly much, under the language in the ordinance, it's pretty much in the discretion of the Board of Aldermen whether they're going to get one or not. So at some point, somebody decides, hey, we don't like this food truck vendor, even though they've been operating here week in and week out, we just won't issue them a permit for MyFest or Oktoberfest, and we'll shut them out that way. That's a bit of a concern to us because there's a great potential there for what we would call arbitrary and capricious action by the mayor, not the mayor, but the Board of Aldermen. So we have some significant concerns about that. When you have a food truck vendor who's there on a regular basis, has a city business license, has a city food truck vendor license, and has a food truck vendor license, when you submit the application for the license, we have to tell you where that truck is going to be. The ordinance says we have to tell you on the application that food truck is going to be at this particular location, and if we move it, we have to let the city clerk know that we're going to a different location. We're already telling you what location we're going to be at. You're giving us a food truck vendor license or permit for that location. Why are we then having to get permission to have another license just to operate during MyFest or Oktoberfest or whatever the festival event is? I don't see why we would be treated any differently than any other business, any brick and mortar business that's here in the city. We're paying sales taxes, we've got the business license, we've got the food truck vendor license, we're complying with all of your codes, but we're going to get shut out on a festival weekend when it's, good business, a lot of people. So that's a significant concern to us.
Yeah, I don't think that everybody during the festivals has to get those permits. I mean, it's been policy for as long as I've lived here pretty much, I think. So, I mean,
But I think, with due respect, Mayor, I think the difference is you're talking about vendors who may be operating once or twice a year during MyFest and Oktoberfest. We're looking at food truck vendors who may be here every weekend. They may every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday. They're not just coming in 1 or 2 days for some festival event.
I understand that. Like I say, I don't know, what's your own feeling on that?
It's a $10 fee, and everybody does it, every vendor. I think last time we met, we talked even, Mr. Sloan does it at the Worst House. He has one.
And I don't, it's not the fee that's the issue.
No.
It's the possibility that somebody decides in the future, we don't really like that food truck vendor being there, so we're gonna shut them out when it comes to a festival event. We're not gonna give them a permit. And then, you know, on a busy weekend like that, or during a busy event like that, when they could do a lot of business and, you know, sales tax and all of that, they're gonna get shut out because somebody isn't gonna give them a vendor permit.
As far as I can remember, I don't ever recall shutting anybody out.
No.
Well,
We would
but the
never-
problem is you have a limit on the number of permits that are issued. Your ordinance says that there's a limit on the number of permits that are gonna be issued. Now, it's a little fuzzy as to what that number is. I think back in '84 or whatever it was 130, and then it says it's adjustable every year, but I
That's what
don't,
we're doing with the resolution tonight on your binders is us approving the ones, you know, the number of the ones that are applying for
We do
this
that
year. So
every
every year, we adjust the number based on, like you said, we've never turned anybody down.
There might be a compromise here. So, talking about we've required it of everybody, devil's advocate for a second, an argument could be made that not everybody has to get a separate license, right? Whereas food trucks have to get separate licenses, et cetera. So, in my opinion, it's legal for the city to require business licenses, of course. It's legal for the city to require food truck permits. Food trucks are special businesses that compare them to brick and mortar restaurants if you want, but I don't think they're special, they're different. And I think the city has the right to address those. I think the city has the right to address crowds in May and October for the public health, welfare, safety, et cetera, et cetera. The city has an interest in regulating who goes where and whether there's 2 food trucks on this lot or 7, right? So if the interpretation of our code is that a food truck vendor on the Lampkins lot would need a business license, a food truck vendor permit, the owner of the property would need to get a festival permit that shows the vendor or the owner of the property how many spaces they can have, right, on their property. And then the food truck vendor has to get a separate festival permit. That's 4 pieces of paper for that truck. And so, in my opinion, perhaps what we could do to maybe compromise is say business license, food truck permit, and still require those owners to get the space permit and say, okay, that there'll be 3 spaces, and if they want to fill those spaces with somebody who already has a business license and a food truck permit, well, then no further permitting required. But if somebody comes from out of town to fill one of those spaces, then they have to get the food truck vendor permit, you know, et cetera. And that's even, I think, what I wrote to you last Thursday is, or my take on it, but it can be, if you read the festival code closely, you know, you could interpret that and say, well, the owner has to get space permits that allow 3 or 4 spaces, and then the food trucks have to get a permit.
Is there a way of doing that without exempting the food trucks that come in just those few times a year that aren't gonna be like on a private lot regularly?
I don't have any problem with, I'm sorry, you probably weren't addressing that to me, but I'll jump in anyway. It's the city attorney in me. If they're operating on a city street or a city parking lot or other city property, I don't think anybody has a concern with if you're gonna limit the number of spaces 2, 5, 10, whatever the number is, whether they're food trucks or anybody else, and whether they come in once a year, twice a year, or 100 times a year. They're still operating on city property or city streets. I don't think we have a problem with that. It's when you're regulating the number of spaces that can operate on private property, And when your ordinance, and maybe you haven't applied it, but when your ordinance says you have the right to limit the number of those permits, that's a concern. Now, I understand your comment is you've never limited them, and that's fine, and if that's the case, why don't you amend the code and take that language out about limiting the number of permits that are issued? And it's not just a limit of the number of permits for a particular piece of property, it's citywide. So you may decide you're gonna have 80 permits this year or 50 permits next year, and we're gonna limit those permits to public property. So nobody on private property is gonna get a permit at all. And then if I've got a food truck vendor who's got the business license, they got a sales tax license, and they got a food truck vendor license, they can't even operate on the same place that they've been operating for basically the entire year. That's a big concern, and frankly, I don't understand what is, you know, when you look at these ordinances, you look at what is the harm that you're trying to protect everyone from. I don't see what the harm is that you're trying to protect when you have the same food truck vendor that's legal Monday through Friday of that week at that location, but for the event that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's not, because they don't have a vendor permit, or whatever it's called, festival permit, whatever it's called. That, I don't, what's the difference? And magically at midnight on Thursday night, it's no longer legal to have the food truck on these 3 days at this particular location? What's the difference? I understand you have more crowds coming in, but that's what everybody wants in the first place. That's what you're trying to promote. You're trying to bring people in. So you're sort of defeating the purpose by telling these people you can operate during the week, you can operate every other weekend, but you can't operate these 2 weekends unless you have a permit, which we may or may not give you.
So it seems like the two issues are getting blurred a bit. You would agree with me that it may not be reasonable to require the food truck owner vendor to also get a festival vendor permit for his truck if they've already got a business license and a food truck permit, etc. But you also don't agree with the ability of the city to require the owner of the property to apply for a festival space permit, where the city could potentially say, we're going to limit your property to 3 vendor spaces.
Yes.
Where your owner might want to put 5 trucks there.
I would not agree with that. I agree with the first part of your comment about that it's unreasonable to require somebody to have a business license, a sales tax license, and a food truck vendor license, and get a festival permit or whatever it's called on top of that. I agree with that. I don't agree, though, that it's reasonable to go to the private property owner or require the private property owner then to get additional approval to have this same food truck there, or 1 or 2 or however many the space will hold. Who makes the determination how much space is required for each vendor? Who's going to make that determination? What yardstick are you going to use to make that determination? What's reasonable, what's not? There's all kinds of, it's just ripe for a challenge, let's put it that way.
So this is bleeding over into a whole nother issue for you all, the fact that we require during festivals for vendors, property owners who want vendors on their property to submit an application to the city in order to get permission to have vendors on private property. We've been doing that, right or wrong, it's been happening since 1984. When they initiated that, a whole bunch of these regulations are related to that time frame regarding, vendors and applications and permission. But the way we've been functioning is we do, during MyFest and Oktoberfest, require private property owners to get permission from the city to have vendors on their property. And that was just kind of back in the day, I think they had an issue with things springing up on every corner, and it kind of got out of hand. I think that's where that comes from. But so this is, bleeding into kind of a broader topic of how you guys might want to address this going forward. Is, the city's requiring application from private property.
And I appreciate that information. And with all due respect, my least favorite answer I hear when I'm talking to a client about something is, that's the way we've always done it. That it might have been right in 1984, but we're, what, 30 years past that now? Is it still right today? Probably not. Just because it was good in '84 doesn't mean it's appropriate today. So I understand that's the way it's always been done, but like I said, that's my least favorite answer to hear, because there's no real rationale behind that comment. There's no reasoning behind that comment.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if, say, on your private property, you wanted to throw a wine slushy truck out there or a beer truck out there, could you do it?
If you can get a liquor license, you can.
So that was one of our concerns last year, is that we didn't want any more liquor out in the streets because it's hard for the police to control the crowds in all of these places.
But are you saying you don't want them on the streets, or you don't want them on private property? Because to me, that's two different things.
I think we voted because we didn't want them in either place unless it was an established business, didn't we? Remember last year?
I think it did stipulate in this draft too that food trucks would not be allowed to sell on top speed.
Yeah, and we have no argument with that. In fact, I think I mentioned this before. In our particular case, there's going to be a liquor establishment next door, and we don't want to compete with them. We want to be sort of cooperative with them and feed off of each other, so to speak, food truck, so to speak, feed off.
I tend to agree with what you're saying there. If a food truck comes in and they are business licensed, they have health inspection. I want to keep throwing that in there because that is required by the city, the county, and the state. And they have the food truck permit. I think that would be all necessary.
And I agree
Why
with
would
you.
they need the $15 festival event?
I agree with you. That's exactly the position that we're in. If you're going to require a food truck vendor license, then a sales tax license, a business license, a food truck vendor license, a health inspection, what more do we have to operate at that location? Again, for 50 weeks out of the year, it's okay to be there, but for I don't know how long MyFest is. MyFest and Oktoberfest, we can't be there because we don't have a special permit. That just seems unreasonable to me. So,
Question for the board to consider: do you think it's reasonable for the city to regulate the number of festival spaces on private property? Do you think there comes a number of food trucks parked on that lot between Save-A-Lot and whatever their building is, that's too many food trucks for the public health, safety, welfare?
Does the code with the state, the food code manual, say anything? Because we talked about this in some of our other meetings, how much space between a food truck should there be for safety, and we haven't addressed that.
Some of the other ordinances out there does specify X number of food trucks within square footage. And examples, say 219 East First Street, comfortably, they may be able to get 6-8 trucks in there safely.
I have no idea.
I'm just throwing the number out. If all of a sudden we get 24 in there, let's say the deep fryers or something else that rubs, now we got 24, just throwing the number out. And during our festival events, the high population, the potential of first responders to get through there to a loaded parking lot.
And I guess my response to that is, I'm a free marketer. If the market says you can have 3 here or 6 here, you have 3 there or 6 there. If you have 24 there or some number like that, it's going to make it almost impossible for people to move around and get from one place to the other, and the market is going to take care of that and is going to say, no, you've oversaturated this. You can't have this many on this lot because people can't move around, they can't function.
So we need that in our ordinance, space between food.
I think that's what Susan was getting at, you kind of clarified it is, yeah, I think maybe we need some type of restrictions, because if it's not in black and white, the door's wide open.
Yes, sir.
So if we could say safely, which may need the building inspector or
Just
other-
like they went to Doxy
knowledge.
Slush and measured that out, the same thing.
And to come up with safely, we can see you can have 8 food trucks on this property. Then we should be able to say, okay, fine, you have 8. Now, one leaves, you could bring another one in, but not to exceed the maximum number of 8 or 10, whatever the number may be.
And we would know who the food trucks were in town because they've got their business license, their
Yeah.
sales tax and all that.
So you want that added into this ordinance then?
I think we need to have our inspector research distances, what other towns
We'll
have.
get back to the original topic, I don't think the festival event fee would be needed. That's
So are we
main
talking about the
basic.
festival event application that the property owner fills out, there's no fee for that? Or are we talking about the vendor space permit, $10 fee that the individual vendors fill out and pay?
That's what he's talking about.
I'm talking about both.
And what are you talking about?
Well, I was thinking about one, do we have to have the property owner apply for that permit, which is 15, and why would then the food truck have to?
I thought you said there was no fee for the business.
So, there is no fee for the business. So the property owner, like you guys have in your packet tonight, there's a festival event application, okay, for private property. And so, the property owners fill that out to get permission to use their private property, for, vendors. And they put on, one of the questions on the application is how many vendor space permits do you need? And they put how many vendors they'll be having, but then those individual vendors are the ones who fill out a really short one-page application, and pay a $10 fee to get their vendor space permit.
Mr. Contact, do you
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
you have this, do you know what she's talking about?
I just saw that.
Okay.
But I understand what that
So
is.
Tricia, do you know or recall whenever a property owner has submitted their application for vendor spaces, has the city gone back and said, we're not giving you 5, we're giving you 3, we're not giving you 10, we're giving you 8?
Not in my 10 years here.
So there's really no criteria that the city has looked at to determine how many permits you get?
I don't think there's ever been so many that's been brought into question.
Because, you know, I'm thinking about your concern about fire hazard. Are you gonna have the same rule for somebody like the Knights of Columbus or the Elks or whoever that puts up a food tent and they're selling food and obviously they're barbecuing there, or somebody else comes in and it's not a food truck, but they put up a tent and they're selling, I was at an event a couple of weeks ago and somebody just had tents set up and they were selling food out of the tents that they were barbecuing there. So is it gonna apply to them as well, the same
I think it
spacing
should.
requirements?
I think it should, if you're cooking and
I think the
there's fire.
verbiage is in this that it does apply to tents.
But my point is, and I think the Alderman's comment is, they're gonna have to be spaced so far apart, and there's nothing like that that addresses either the food trucks or somebody who's operating a tent, a pop-up tent with a barbecue grill, which has just as much risk of fire or whatever as anything else. I mean, if that's the concern, and I'm not minimizing that, but then that ought to apply to everybody, not
Exactly.
just food trucks.
Any food operations, maybe it should say.
Well, most of the, well, I'm trying to pick up here is, say, like the Masons or the Knights of Columbus, they fill out the special event application and we approve it.
Right.
Now, I was getting more at is congestion, that if that parking lot is X number of feet, we have to stay within where you take the Masons, usually down by the caboose, they're by themselves. KFC is up at the other end of the block by themselves, so there's not a group of similar vendors in one location. My concern was if we get an over amount of vendors in a designated location, then it may become a safety issue.
And I understand that, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. My point is, if you're gonna have space limitations on food trucks, you have to have the same space limitations on other vendors, whether they're the Masons or the Knights of Columbus or whoever it is, or whatever organization it is. If they're selling food, they're grilling food at that location, then if the issue is a concern about fire risk, then it's got to apply to everybody.
I think the space limitation is what he's referring to, is being parked so close together, not the space limitations that the truck is gonna use, because the trucks are different sizes when they come in.
No, and I understood that that's what he's after, but if you're gonna say you gotta have 10 feet separation between food trucks, then you gotta have 10 feet separation between tents that are grilling or selling food. If the concern is, thank you, if the concern is it's a fire hazard or a fire risk, then that should apply to everybody that's got open flame, whether it's charcoal or gas grill or whatever it is. So I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying that if you're gonna do that, it's gotta apply to everybody.
Like I said, most of the experience I've seen is the one-offs are by themselves. And my concern was when we had a large volume, then it could become more of a safety potential hazard.
I mean, we had, and I'm sure Dave was there, we had a barbecue fest, or was it barbecue blues fest in Washington a couple of weeks ago. And there was one tent next to one tent, next to tent, next to tent. And of course, they're all grilling, they're all, barbecuing and selling their products. And it was, I don't think there was any separation between those tents. They were right next to each other because they were trying to maximize the number of participants in that particular space. So,
But I agree with Jay. Our situation here in Harmon is with the other activities that go on with barbecues, and are usually just, well, always, as far as I know, it's just one entity in a location. There's no other things next to them. So, I mean, I think that in this ordinance, maybe there should be something about a distance between them as far as the number on the lot. Like I say, the trucks vary in size, so I mean, one might be 20 feet long, the next one might be 30 feet long. I mean, so you can't say, well, the space is 20 feet long because the 30-foot guy ain't gonna fit. So, I mean.
And we had that somewhere, I should have brought all that with me.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with putting something like that in there myself, you all are the ones that have to make the decision, not me.
How would you compromise with the, still doing the vendor space application, but not the vendor permits? How would that be written in there?
We would make the edit that Mark mentioned in 670-020, where it mentions private property, not just city streets, parking lots, or other city property. And then I would put an exception in the chapter 615 festival code, where it might otherwise say that all vendors must get a vendor permit, to say, provided however, or accept food trucks that have a food truck permit per code section. Or chapter 6-7.
So then that would apply for like My Fest, or when they close off the street, we have some sort of, it would be My Fest or Oktoberfest. So any food trucks not on private property, or on private property, so basically anywhere in town on private property or public property, no food trucks would need vendor space permits.
Not necessarily. The property owner on a public street doesn't have to get the property owner festival space permit, because the property owner is the city.
In the city, a group would still apply, like say the My Fest committee would apply to the city to close down Schiller Street. And so they are in essence acting they fill out the festival event application for public property, but they're the organizing kind of umbrella over that.
Okay.
And so I guess I'm just wondering, so they would have food trucks who want to participate and pull up on the street, the closed streets, have all kinds of vendors, and food trucks are some of those vendors on public street during My Fest. Do they need a vendor space permit like all their neighbors on the street?
I would think just doing it for the private be the answer there, leaving the public the way it is, and for private allowing a vendor space application for the owner to be done and not individual vendor permits for the food truck.
Let's get
So
our legal
that's-
right, you need to say festival event
Festival,
application
yes.
versus vendor space
There's
permit.
a lot of permits
Okay.
going on.
So the special event application would fall on the property owner,
Correct.
not the individual.
Correct, because we've already got their food truck application, business license, everything. Could that be done? Just for private?
Okay with that?
Like,
But now, the question is, are we doing that just, this might be a question for another time. Are we doing that just for food trucks, or are we doing that for all private property during festivals?
On private property lots where there are these tents that they were talking about.
Well, sure, during any festival, anybody.
Well, let's,
Or no,
there's this
Like
lot,
this.
there's trolley lot. Is there a bunch of tents and trucks and things on that?
sometimes they ask for vendors there, sometimes on that one right across the street from them.
I can't think of too many open lots of downtown.
Well,
Herman Lumber.
yeah,
I was thinking maybe we
not a
could
lot, there's not.
write in here where it talks about during a festival or special event, that the food trucks could be exempt if they have the business license, sales tax, and health inspection, and the vendor permit. They would be exempt from having to get the festival permit.
Yeah, well, in your code, your proposed code requires all of those things. You have to have a sales tax license, you have to have a business license, you have to have an inspection from the health department, and you have to have a food truck vendor license. So to me, if you're gonna do what you're suggesting, then you take this entire section out of here, because you're gonna exempt them from these food truck vendor license. You take this section out and you instead say, food truck vendors are exempt from the, whatever it is, the chapter 615 regulation of festival activities.
Provided they're on private property.
Yes. I know you're all probably sick of hearing about this ordinance and.
Now we want to get it right, so.
And I appreciate that, and there's been an awful lot of questions that have been brought up tonight, and a lot of different thoughts about what should happen with this. I almost hate to say it, but, because again, you're probably sick of this, but I would suggest that this is probably not ready for approval tonight, based on the number of comments and questions and concerns that were raised. But again, that's your decision.
Can we keep talking about this and just talk about it all now? Since we're doing it anyway. It's out of order, but, because I think we should wait, and I think we should add space requirements. And I think we should also say under 670.070, that it should say, for any city food truck chapter violation, so that they do speed through town, they get a speeding ticket. Or they-
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. No, that was a good point you made.
Violation of this ordinance.
Yes, violation of the food truck chapter ordinance. And we can talk about it again.
Okay.
What do you guys think of the code, or of the permits, the permitting applications?
I'm good with what you said earlier.
Private?
Yeah, private.
The obligation on the personal property owner, not the individual businesses.
And I wouldn't have that much heartburn with that if you eliminated that language about that there's a limit on the number of these permits. That concerns me, because, you know, at some point in the future, somebody falls out of favor and they say, well, we're just not going to give you a permit, or we're only going to give you one, even though you've got a 20,000 square foot lot, we're only going to give you one permit.
They would be well advised not to do that.
I appreciate that, but as you and I both know, sometimes you give advice and it's accepted, and sometimes you give advice and it's ignored. So,
But with the space requirements, that would be, in essence, a.
That is, in
limit.
itself is a
It's
limitation.
a limit, yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I've taken up a lot of your time.
I do have one, and the verbiage, and I don't know if this is, because if I'm correct, you had a hand in writing the city of
A
Washington.
little bit.
A little bit. The 670.050, oh, I'm sorry. 670.040, item B, bullet point 2. If the food truck has been inspected by the Gaston County Health Department or the Health Department of any other Missouri county, then a copy of the inspection report shall be provided. Not saying in there that it must be inspected, just as if it is, please provide us with a copy.
I think it must be inspected by somebody.
Well, when we had our health department representative here, said of the surrounding counties, the only one that he would possibly accept would be Franklin County.
Yeah, that's the only one I,
They
Franklin,
would come out of Warren County.
probably
Crawford
St. Louis County, St. Louis City, St. Charles County, maybe Jefferson County, I'm not sure, would require food truck inspections. But if you've got somebody that's, they live in St. Louis County, but they don't operate the food truck there, they're never gonna get inspected by St. Louis County either. So I don't even know if you would require them to get an inspection, if St. Louis County would even come out and do one if they're not operating there.
If they have one already is what we're saying, we need to
Yeah.
have a copy of that, or else they have to get one, right?
Yeah, and that's my point, where do they get it?
Gasconade County Health Department, they're gonna know a couple weeks in advance they're coming, they're not just
Well,
gonna
they
show
would
up on.
apply.
Well, and here's, not to belabor this, but
Okay.
I think we brought this up before. These people roll in on Friday night at 5:30 and the event starts at 6:30. And they can call ahead 2 weeks earlier and say, we're gonna be there, but the truck's not gonna be there for inspection until 5:30, Friday night. So they're not necessarily, and the guy from the county did say he's on call 24/7, but it's not reasonable to expect him to get there in 15 minutes, so.
No, but maybe that means you need to get your ducks in a row and have a
Well, I
plan.
think in item B, this is for the application of the food truck permit, that this would be part of the application process. They wouldn't come to town if they don't have their food truck permit. So this is part of the application process that they have to provide inspection.
And like the example there, if they roll in at 5:30 Friday afternoon, unless they had their business license, they can't set up.
Yeah, they're not gonna have a food truck vendor license at
Yeah.
But they-
5:30 or
they-
6 o'clock.
They should tow their food truck to Herman.
They can get it in the county they live in.
Ahead of time, or St. Charles, or
But
Franklin.
that's my question, if they live in St. Charles County, but they don't operate a food truck there, can you even get the county health department to come out and do an inspection when they're not operating there?
I'm certain they've had to have a food inspection at some point to be
A lot of times
operating.
they have commissaries that has to, if it operates in St. Charles County, it has to be inspected.
Yeah, but that's my point, if they're not operating there, they just live there and they're moving out here for the weekend, can you even go to the county health department in St. Charles County and say, hey, can you do an inspection because I gotta have one in Gasconade County? Would you even do one? I'm not operating here, but would you do one?
Well, I would think anybody that's in the food truck business, no matter where they're at, would have to have an inspection.
I think at that point, it's on them if that's
Yeah,
why they
but
don't wanna come here.
I don't think that's our problem.
Don't
I
worry
think
about
for
it.
the safety's sake of people that they're selling stuff to, it's a liability that here's my, my inspection from January or whatever. Whether, I mean, if they don't have an inspection, I mean, that's how I look at it. If you're in business, you want to cover your butt. And so they should have that.
But to that extent, you're relying on the regulations from another county, which may or may not be acceptable to you.
But don't
And
they
as
all
long
have to
as
follow
they're-
the states?
Not necessarily.
Each one could be more restrictive. That's what Tom said, he would honor Franklin County, because Franklin County is a whole lot stricter than what Gasconade
But
is.
it's all the Missouri Food Code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Operating.
if you're in a charter county like St. Louis County or St. Charles County or Jefferson County, a lot of times because they're charter counties, they can adopt regulations that are entirely different than the food code. It could be more or less stringent.
So you can go to any health department in any Missouri county and get one the way this reads. The health department of any other Missouri county.
I just think that's a requirement when they apply, and they have to abide by
Have
it,
to do it,
otherwise
yeah.
they're not accepted, period. That's the way I look at it.
Usually the health inspections are good for a year.
And again, if you can get one wherever you're at, I don't know that that's a problem. It would be much easier if they were coming here, if the health department here would do the inspection. I
And
think
that would be
Yeah, it
on,
would.
that would be on them to make them arrangements with our health department. Hey, I'm gonna be here at 5 o'clock. Could you meet me and do that? That's, I don't think that is our responsibility. That is the truck owner's responsibility because we're requiring it and that's what they need to do.
But as the alderman pointed out, you have to have that information at the time you apply for your permit. So you can't really roll in at 5:30 on Friday night with your health inspection unless the clerk's office is gonna open up and you're gonna get a permit at 5:30 on a Friday night for a food truck.
How about if we research this?
All this stuff is done ahead of time. I mean, it's not like they're gonna, I mean, I don't think it's a problem.
I think these places, I would think businesses in general, they plan out ahead, not shoot from the hip. This is Thursday night at 6. I think we're gonna go to Herman Friday morning.
I think us accepting other counties' health departments, I think kind of mitigates that.
Okay.
Yet, I think if they apply for a business license, they have to have the inspection, preferably, and there again, Bruce is right, this is an answer we need to get from Gascony County Health Department. It's up to them to get with the food vendor to approve, walk through their food handling process. And then it's good for a year, and then he can get his business license and have fun and.
Or if they provided an inspection for, Missouri.
If they inspected, they run their food truck in Franklin County, they have the current, which has to be posted, Franklin County inspector. Okay, hey, I got my business license for Herman. Pick the phone up, call Gascony County Health and say, hey, here's a copy of my license. It's on file with the city. I'm gonna be there Friday or Saturday, May the 20th in Herman. When can I get a inspection?
So you want, just to be clear, if they already have an inspection from, in your example, Franklin County, you want them to have another inspection in Gasconade County?
Well, I think they should contact our health department, and from what he said that night when he was here, he would honor that. But some of the other counties, he would question, and he would rather do the inspection himself. That is, the judgment would be on the health department, not us.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get some clarity on what is going to be required. That it's not sufficient if they have an inspection from another county, they're still going to have approval from the Gasconade County Health Department. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that if they have one, say, from St. Charles County, and they come into town, they're set up, they still need to contact Gasconade just to make sure, and if they approve it, then there ain't no problem. They've done everything they could do.
Okay, so regardless of where they've been inspected, they're still going to have approval from the Gasconade County Health Department.
Yes, if you want to use that terminology.
It doesn't say that in here.
I
Yeah.
don't think so. I don't think that's what we were looking
I don't think that,
No,
I think
that's
as
not
long
what
as
this
we let the
says.
Gasconade County know when we receive these inspections, it's on them.
yeah.
If they want to contact them, they can,
We give
right?
them their contact information, what dates they'll be here. It's the ball's in their court.
Yep, I agree with you. Okay,
So,
Go ahead.
again, we're going to get an inspection report from anywhere, at any other county
that's the way this.
In Missouri.
in Missouri.
And if Gasconade County isn't okay with it, they will come in and inspect you.
And then
the day
that's
you're in
that's
operation.
their problem.
That's
Okay.
Okay, You've been on this a long time.
Yes, sir. And I didn't want to monopolize your meeting, and I certainly thank you for your time.
Okay.
You don't ask questions, you don't get the answers.
That's true. Sometimes you don't get the answer you want, but at least you get an answer.
So we're gonna put this on the drawing board and send it back to you to fill in the voids or the corrections or the,
Right.
Thank you all.
all right. Well, we will move on. Ordinances, we'll move on to the ordinances.
All right, first is bill number 2022-19, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the city of Herman, Missouri and On Media to provide a live and digital media advertising campaign.
Any discussion? Have a motion to approve?
I move to approve bill number 2022-19.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Are you need all these read twice because of the time?
Anybody?
I would think that'd be great.
Did I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Yes, I was just asking Tammy, because we're drawing up on the end of the fiscal year, and we need to get this money, these invoices through, could we read these twice? Please.
Okay, we'll do a second reading as requested. Yes, sir.
Bill number 2022-19 for second reading, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the city of Herman, Missouri and On Media to provide a live and digital media advertising campaign.
Have a motion for second reading?
I'll move the second reading of 2022-19 be approved.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Next is bill number 2022-20 for first reading, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the city of Herman, Missouri and Madden Media to provide impressions via commercials on Spotify.
Have a motion?
Can I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Technophobe here, impressions, what are impressions?
Impressions are what is a measurement of people actually seeing something on whatever outlet you're using. So whether it's a Facebook impression, a YouTube impression, a Spotify impression, that is actually people seeing what your ad, seeing your ad,
Or hearing.
or hearing it. And-
Because Spotify would be audio, it would not be.
Right.
One comment that kind of addresses the next two here is, I just noticed that's a lot of money to spend. The last meeting you had a fairly large, and all of which was not in the budget. So caution to err, we're working on the budget. Will we be more efficient and closer? I understand it's, was an exceptional good year.
It was.
And,
So when we were doing the budget for FY22 last year, right at this time, February, March, and April, we had the new lodging tax increase from 3% to 5% that was kicking in on January 1 of 2022. So we did not know if we were going to get, much of an increase as a result of that. We also still didn't know how COVID was going to affect us in 2022 and in 2023. So we were very conservative, as we are good Germans, in our budgeting, and Herman has continued to prosper and our lodging tax is up. And yes, so we are already, for FY23, we've bumped our numbers up for revenue.
Could we also bump up take some of the next year's budget and use something to do something about bathrooms for tourists downtown, more bathrooms?
That would be a conversation we would need to have in many different groups, and the Tourism Commission would discuss that.
That would be good. That's something that's really needed.
Okay?
All right. Any other questions? I have a motion.
I move to approve, is it 2220?
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Second time on that one, too?
Please.
Bill number 2022-20 for second reading, An ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and Nana Media to provide impressions via commercials on Spotify.
I move to approve bill number 2022-22nd read.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Next is bill number 2022-21 for first reading. An ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and News 4 St. Louis, Great Day St. Louis to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
Any questions? If not, motion please.
Move to approve 2022-21 first read.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Second reading on that?
Bill number 2022-21 for second reading. An ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and News 4 St. Louis, Great Day St. Louis to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
I move to approve bill number 2022-21 second read.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Next is bill number 2022-22, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and KOLR 10 and Ozarks Fox to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
A motion? Or any discussion? If not,
I would like to say that I don't know who in the tourism department negotiated these rates, but they are awesome. I know we've had proposals in the past that were 5 times these amounts.
Yeah,
So this is good value.
thank you.
all right, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve bill number 2022-22.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Also second.
Bill number 2022-22 for second reading. An ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and KOLR 10 and Ozarks Fox to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
I move to approve bill number 2022-22 second read.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Next, for first reading, bill number 2022-23, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and KSDK Channel 5, Show Me St. Louis to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
Any questions on this one? If not, have a motion?
I move to, go ahead.
I move to approve 2022-23.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Second reading on that one also.
Bill number 2022-23, an ordinance to approve a contract by and between the City of Herman, Missouri and KSDK Channel 5, Show Me St. Louis to provide a TV lifestyle show package to increase brand recognition.
Do I have a motion on that?
Move 2022-23 second read.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
And the next one is the food truck ordinance,
Did we
which
read that one twice?
You just did.
Okay.
Where you been?
And you got-
Yeah, the food truck one, we'll just, not do that. Okay, move on to resolution.
Yes, the resolution on for this evening is a resolution authorizing the issuance of space permits for the MyFest Festival.
I move to approve resolution number 1318 for 108 spaces.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Okay, we will move to old business. Anyone have any old business that they'd like to discuss?
Are we going to have Mr. Fleach come and talk about the occupancy permits maybe next time?
Yes.
And where are we at on the K69 bolt lines?
The easements are drafted, they've been sent to Central. Next step is we're waiting, our Public Works Director, I'm sorry. Jesse is waiting for the green light to go ahead. He's got to go to the property owners, about a half a dozen of them or more, and explain to them that we now need this easement for this line that's been over their property for years, and see how that goes. But we're making progress.
Cool, thank you.
Anyone else? Any new business?
I do have a slight piece of new business. I would like to ask the citizens of Herman to be aware of the construction going on Washington Street. As the construction goes on, to please not park, and ask, Chief Walker if he can assist in encouraging people not to obstruct the construction. It's been a long time coming, and I'd hate for people not moving their vehicles to gum up the works.
All right, good point. Any other new business? We will move on to motions. Do I have motions to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I move to approve the minutes from the April meeting.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Invoices for payment.
I move we pay the bills.
I have a motion to pay the bills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Conditional use permit renewal, 108 East 13th Street, LLC, Zachary and Ashley Michael, owner unoccupied guest house at 108 East 13th Street.
Is everything good there, Trish?
Yes, everything's good there. If you'll recall, last year we renewed this is when you'll see here there was a copy of their variance. Remember, that was a condition, and they got the variance from the Board of Adjustment. And you'll see in there a note that there haven't been any problems, and their checklist now has been completed. Yes, Corey? So they're good.
I move to approve that then.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Conditional use permit, renewal concert hall and Barrel Alex Stemmy outdoor liquor consumption, 206 East First Street. Any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Hire Paula Brewer as a tourism services assistant.
I move to approve Paula Brewer as tourism services assistant.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Hire Skylar Sutton as lifeguard for 2022 pool season.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add one more. This one came in today, and this will fill our final and 14th of our goal of 14 guards we were going to hire. This is a returning guard, and actually she managed before, Tess Shaw.
Okay.
If we could add her to this motion, that'd be really great.
I move to approve Teth Shauna and Skylar Sutton as lifeguards for the 2022 pool season.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Approve the bid from Arkansas Electric Cooperation for $12,671.52 for 48 LED replacement bulbs for downtown decorative light poles. Wow.
This was in the budget, I'm assuming.
I believe it was. And I know they want to get ahead of the supply chain.
Yeah, they've been having trouble getting light bulbs. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Approve a bid from JM Test Systems for Fire Phase Ranger 1 GPD Phase ID kit for $10,900.
That's right. So this one, that's a mouthful, I know. This one was for certain in the budget, and Jesse actually had it rebid because it came in kind of expensive because it had a bunch of bells and whistles on it. So he got a stripped down model, which is really for all that he needs. And he explained to me that this is for identifying in-ground wiring where they can read, this machine will read the phases of it without them having to have any outages and it's much safer too. So this machine will read through the ground what phase the electric is.
Like the transformer or something?
Okay.
I move to approve the bid from JM Test Systems.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So carried. Approve the Municipal Gas Commission of East Central Missouri first amended and restated joint contract and approve Jesse Geltz as the Herman's alternate director.
I move to approve the amended and restated joint contract.
Just a little discussion maybe first. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about this. Years ago, I think it was 2010 when this was formed, but before that, Herman bought its gas from the Municipal Gas Commission of Missouri, or it was a member, I should say, of the Municipal Gas Commission of Missouri, which was an entity under the umbrella of MPUA, the Missouri Public Utilities Alliance. We've heard more in town the last 20 years about another entity under that umbrella, MOPEP, which is who we're a member of that organization. We pool together to buy electricity. But we were a member of Gas Commission of Missouri, and our representatives that went to those meetings came back always frustrated because they didn't listen to the city's concerns. It was oddly managed. It was basically run by a czar and a cartel of a few cities who did whatever they wanted to do. The prices were high, and we got together with New Haven and Berger and Middletown and New Florence and said, well, let's look into forming our own gas commission of just the 5 of us to see if we can pool our needs together and go out and buy gas. And so Missouri law says that you can do that. It's not just MPUA that can do that. Any group of political subdivisions can get together and form this commission. How they are governed and the rules they live by are set forth in what the statute calls a joint contract. So we have this contract with New Haven and Berger and Middletown and New Florence that says when we're going to meet, how we should meet, how we take votes, kind of like the bylaws for a corporation. And so this commission has been meeting pretty much quarterly for the last 12 years. And our representative from our gas seller, his name is Ron Reagan, R-A-G-A-N. And I think it's safe to say that over the last 12 years, the city has literally saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in prices of gas. There are other gas providers out there, and his contract does come up every so often, every 3 years, I think, and so we'll go out and shop around then, but he's done a really good job for us. And so there were just a couple of really small changes to be made to this contract to update it. But the commission thought it might be a good idea, since it's been so long since the first one was approved, to just get this out there to all the member cities and have the boards of aldermen approve it. And hear a kind of a spiel like this, just to new aldermen. I think everybody's new since we first passed this, just so you know a little more what's going on with our gas purchases. And so one thing that the document requires is the appointment by the city of a representative to represent the city on this commission, and that's Tricia. But it also requires the appointment of an alternate representative, and so that's Jesse, so that's what's in front of you tonight, or it would be Jesse.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second to approve?
Second.
Motion's made, second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Appoint Clayton Newell to the Board of Adjustment.
I do have a question on that. Do we have an opening on the board?
Oh, yes. John Hill resigned about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, yeah. So yes, we definitely have an opening.
Okay, cool.
Have a motion to approve, Mr. Newell.
I move to approve.
Motion's been made, second.
Second.
Motion's made, second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Letter agreement with Krista and Zachary Labby for planting trees along the south line of West 18th Street.
Only question I had on that, I know it was brought up at the UAV meeting last week or whenever, Jesse had brought it up. When they plant these, are they gonna remember that 24-foot right of way the city has from the back of the curb? You know, they have to get back off of the curb.
Was that part of the discussion?
I don't know if it was part of the discussion, but their property line sits back far from the curb already. If you look at like the assessor's map and all that, their property line is behind that walk area, and there's a green space between the highway and their property line. I don't know the exact footage of that.
Can we add that in this?
Sure.
Because the city does have a right of way, I forget if it's 18 or 24 inches from the back of the curb forward. Now, I told years ago, that's where they intend to run most of their water lines, sewer lines, electric lines, what have you. And I know Jesse had brought it up that we've had some issues where trees and bushes have been planted in that area and it's eroding the sidewalks and the curbs. So if we do this, let's allow that tree be able to grow properly.
I was at this meeting, and I do believe it wasn't along Highway 100. It was in between the property between. Yeah.
There's not
East and
actually a
west.
street there. They
It's
wanted
along
the
their
street, they
road.
wanted
They
the
asked for a
street
vacancy.
vacated, but
Yeah.
they're going down in between what used to be the ice house and their property there.
And they understand that if those trees got big and at some point that was developed back there and paved and stuff, that those trees.
Let's just say where it says West 18th Street, and that's the one out here.
Yeah, no, it's over there.
And also, the end of that, where it meets the highway, is actually all gravelled in right now. That's where Van Boeven's used to come in and out, and they had no intention of changing anything there. If that helps, some context.
More clear, I was thinking of the street out here, I went,
No,
let's
it's-
make sure they're back, and still again,
Way on the other
they need to stay back far enough so the roots doesn't interfere with the growth of the tree and property.
So any other discussion? You want to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve this then, now that you know where it's at and what they're doing?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Vehicle for hire license for Wine Country Wagon Rides. Have a motion for that?
Move to approve.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
I will second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Caterers permit J Rigging Company MyFest Vendor Amphitheater, May 21st, 22nd. Have a motion to approve caterers permit?
This is at the amphitheater.
Yes.
I move to approve.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application 2022 MyFest Committee, picnic in the park, Upper City Park and Bandstand, Sunday, May 22nd, 2022.
Can we have this explained a little bit so the citizens know that this is for them too?
Sure. Sunday, May 22nd is the picnic in the park. This is the 70th anniversary of the MyFest this year, so we definitely want the community to come out and celebrate it. There'll be pink lemonade and bratwurst. St. Paul's United Church of Christ is serving meals, and the Late Eggs will be playing in the bandstand. So please come out and enjoy it. It'll be a wonderful afternoon, and should be a great time, and free to families.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the festival application.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
I will
Motion made
second.
and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application 2022 MyFest Committee amendment number 2 to include food vendors with partial street closure on the eastern portion of 200 block of East 3rd Street on Friday, May 20th, starting at noon.
This is basically what we'd already approved. They just want actually those vendors to start serving on Friday night, since the
Okay.
Jaycees will be doing food right there at the Sesquicentennial Park.
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion's made. May I have a second?
Yes, you may, I will second.
Have a- Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Confusing, isn't it?
You're reading so many of them. Okay, festival event application. City of Herman Caboose Museum Conductor Statue Dedication Ceremony, Caboose area, First and Goodsburg, Sunday, May 22nd, 2022. I have a motion to approve that.
I move to approve the conductor statue dedication at 5 p.m. on the 22nd.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application, downtown businesses, seat Schnitzelgregger for Kinder.
I'll wait for that.
Kid, basically a kid scavenger hunt. Downtown sidewalks, May 20th through the 23rd. Don't do that.
Can I try? I vote to approve the Schnitzeldad for Kinder on the downtown sidewalks.
Very good.
Trying to make it look good. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Can you repeat? Okay. Motion made and second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application, Quench by Marley concession stand, 3rd Street side of 215 Schiller on private property, May 21st and 22nd. That's a little lemonade stand.
I move to approve.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Ta-da! Are you awake? Festival event application, River City Cruisers Car Show requesting street closures, 4th Street from Market to Schiller and Schiller from 4th to 3rd, September 10th.
We must be getting close to the end. As most of you know, we did a car show in the park for 20 years. 2019 was the last one. We decided that 20 years was enough because I'm one of the young ones. We're just getting too old. And we were planning on doing something in 2020, but you know what happened. So we were planning on the same weekend because car people, once they get into a rhythm, they have certain places they go every year, and people loved coming here. The last few shows, when we had good weather, we had between 225 and 250 cars, and it brings in a lot of people. And we would like to do it downtown, as it said, 4th Street from Market to Schiller, and then down Schiller to 3rd. I know the last couple years, Blue Oval has gone down 5th Street. We would rather turn the corner and go on Schiller simply because we like to funnel the people down to the businesses. Plus, it's easier to get the parking there than take away from residents on 5th Street or 4th Street down. And it's just, we have a lot of people that enjoyed coming to Herman. We provided food in the park, we provided shuttle service, but if we go downtown, they're within walking distance of all the businesses. They're within walking distance of the restaurants, of the bars, of the shops, and that's what we want. The only problem it is, because we've been out of the rotation for a couple of years, it's going to take a couple of years to build it up. But I think that we will have people come back to town again because they enjoyed it so much. We have donated thousands of dollars over the years, and this was the only moneymaker we did all year long. We're trying to figure out how to make money out of this, but we know that people in town are going to make money.
I think you're losing your soul, you sold us.
And, you know, that's, you know, talk about the vendors, it wouldn't be us, it would be the people in town that would do it. And I think it's going to work. And anybody's got any questions, we would love. And we would love suggestions from you on how to get
It'll be a great
businesses
weekend.
involved too.
It'll be a great weekend. It's the same weekend as the Bushwhacks and the Hollywoods, and the same weekend as
That's
the
not an
quilt
accident.
show at the Rotunda.
Yeah,
So
it's not an
a very
accident,
wonderful
plus we
weekend.
moved it to Saturday instead of Sunday because of Bushwhacks.
Right on.
Right.
Good.
Well, I want to commend you, I'm glad to see a park show coming back, you know.
Absolutely.
Everybody misses the park show, so.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Just curious, how many car applicants have you had?
As I said, in years past, we've had 250 cars, and when you count club cars, you're probably talking close to 300 cars. We do not expect that many the first year. It'll take a while to build it up. And we have already decided that we would park our cars down on Schiller towards Third to make sure there were cars down there so that people would go. We want people to go the whole way and then go on downtown. And one of the things I thought we might be able to get is, like coupons or something for the businesses that we could give out when people come in, just to get them to go.
The answer to Ash's question, we have advertised this, we don't have any.
Yeah, we haven't had permission, so we haven't put anything
I just know
out.
in years past, the park, it's been huge amount of square footage, and I was just, is this enough space?
I just seen a drone video today of Hannibal reserves.
Yeah,
These are all tremendous.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah,
A lot of towns who do them, they get great crowds, just great crowds.
very good.
Sir, can I get your name for the record, please?
Doug Smith?
Thanks.
Do I have a motion then to approve?
I move to approve the River City Cruisers event application.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Mr. Mayor, this next one, could we postpone that? I got the cart before the horse, that has not passed before the park board yet. I don't expect
for
any
the
problems,
amphitheater?
but I guess I missed getting it to them, so. And it's not until September, so we have.
Okay, then not on your agenda, I have two more here. That she gave me just at the beginning of the meeting, application for special use of public facilities, Calabite, will be held at the Ackerman and Associate, 111 East 4th Street, Wednesday, May 11th, 11 a.m. to 1:30. We're giving away free pizza.
Yeah, if you're a member or you sign up, you get free pizza, lunch.
Would they have 8,000 customers or something like that?
Yeah, yes, 8,000 customer celebration. So,
Motion to approve?
motion's been made, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
So carried. Okay, one more, volunteer board commission, Amy Dealman? Dealman, how are you?
Dealman.
Dealman. For the tourism commission, I have a motion to approve Amy.
I move to approve Amy, she'll be awesome.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Well, believe it or not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You want to go over these?
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.